Is the Grammys still about music? Earlier this month, the Dalai Lama was awarded by the Grammys for his audiobook on medications. In response, the political monk expressed gratitude, claiming the award was, quote-unquote, a recognition of our shared universal responsibility. But China has voiced strong opposition, calling the award an act of political manipulation. Now, for years, Western elites have often taken advantage of popular cultural platforms to smear China. Is the Grammys award to the Dalai Lama the latest manifestation of this? Why did the Grammys award the Dalai Lama after he was mentioned 169 times in the Epstein files? Why does the West still love the Dalai Lama despite his past controversies? To shed light on this topic, I'm pleased to be joined from Jilin, northeastern China, by David Ferguson, Honorary Chief English Editor of Foreign Languages Press; from Beijing by Xiao Jie, Research Fellow at the China Tibetology Research Center; from Shanghai, Professor Josef Mahoney at East China Normal University; and here in the studio, Han Hua, co-founder and Secretary General of the Beijing Club for International Dialogue. The warmest welcome to all of you. First of all, let me go to Xiao Jie. Mr. Xiao Jie, you are a Tibetology expert. Now, the 14th Dalai Lama is viewed as a politician in exile in the West. Why would the Grammys award the award to him at this particular moment? Even the BBC calls it unlikely.
Well, actually, I think that during the past decades, the Western countries have just given numerous awards and honors to the Dalai Lama. We all know that the most famous one is the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989, and also in 2007, the U.S. has given the Dalai Lama the U.S. Congressional Golden Medal. And I think that this is a very just we can say that this is a Western tradition to honor the Dalai Lama, to enhance his political influence, and also to enhance the political image of the Dalai Lama, and also his so-called Tibet cause. And in the recent years, it is difficult for the Western anti-China forces to simply attack China's policy on Xizang. And nowadays, they choose another route. That means use the art forms to enhance the political image or enhance the influence of the Dalai Lama. And their major purpose, I think, that is still to remain the fame of the Dalai Lama and to keep the Tibet cause as a tool for contain China.
To keep it on the lifeline, can I say it like that? David, what is your reaction upon hearing about Grammys? Supposedly the award should be about music, about art, but this is given to a political figure. What is your reaction to that?
Well, of course it's targeting China. Pretty much everything that happens in this kind of field at the moment is targeting China. These awards are becoming more and more corrupted and more debased. Essentially, they're really about virtue signaling, about political posturing, and about currying favor. And it's not really a new thing. It goes all the way back to Barack Obama. Barack Obama was given the Nobel Peace Prize in 2008 by virtue of having done nothing other than being a black man who got elected president. In terms of political posturing, you've got the recent Nobel Prize to Machado in Venezuela, and the Dalai Lama. This is a new award to the Dalai Lama. This political posturing is designed to carrying favor. The recent ridiculous FIFA award to Donald Trump.
Han Hua, let me come to you. How does the award work? For instance, for anyone to receive an award, what has to happen first? They have to agree to, they have to recognize this award, this platform, for instance. Do they also have to apply for it? Then there's supposedly a jury to decide on that. How did it work out this time?
Every time, Liu-Xin, you ask me actually at the very beginning, is it about music? Well, I would say that most of the categories are about music, about the music victories in their excellence in their different categories. But this category, narration and storytelling, is about the political award, especially this year when it is given to Dalai Lama, because it's so political targeted, as David Ferguson just mentioned about. It is targeting China, or it is targeting about the Dalai Lama's real positioning as a political monk. So like it was given, it has to be categorized, nominated, and accepted. And the Dalai Lama has sent a representative to receive this award several days ago.
But did they seek this award? Did the Dalai Lama seek this award in the first place? What do we know?
I believe there are many arguments, and the critics, which I agree, that the team, or the so-called cabinet of the Dalai Lama's team, they are very vigorously seeking to get some awards, especially the award in Grammys. Probably next would be Oscar. I don't know whether they have some documentaries on that, but these are really politicized, and I think this is linked to his near the end of his leadership, and his team wants to secure some political solidify his political legacy, especially among the much younger generation. So getting a Grammy award will definitely solidify in their opinion, to help solidify this kind of recognition. So, and I feel so regretful for Grammy to award this category to Dalai Lama, and this creates a really bad reputation for Grammy as an excellency, performance, top leadership in its music award and the recognition.
Well, this happened very recently, as I say earlier this month, but it's connected to the Epstein files since July, August of last year, when it was discovered that the Dalai Lama was mentioned over 169 times, actually, to be exact. And according to a Daily Beast podcast from the United States, a U.S. journalist actually personally saw that the Dalai Lama was at Epstein's party with this rich and powerful and corrupt people. Although the Dalai Lama office came out to unequivocally deny that the Dalai Lama never met Jeffrey Epstein or authorized any meeting or interaction with him by anyone on his holiness's behalf. But we do not know, because there was this journalist saying he saw the Dalai Lama with the Epsteins. But my question really is, although to be seen at Epstein's party does not necessarily incriminate the Dalai Lama, but there are a lot of questions to be answered, right? For instance, this was not the Dalai Lama's first time to allegedly receive money from people who are sex offenders. It also happened in the past. So my question to Josef really is, why does the Grammys not think that there are questions to be answered about the ethics, about the morality, integrity of this political monk before giving him this award? Don't they care about the reputation of this award?
It's a good question. But to go back to your earlier question, you absolutely have to consent. You have to apply for the award. You have to consent to be nominated, and you have to consent to receive the award. This is part of how that academy works, and so it's clearly the case that his team pursued this award, which interestingly I find sort of strange that someone who is supposed to represent a living God among the people who are faithful to him would seek to be validated by an organization like this. And that such an organization would think that it were qualified to validate someone like this. We all know that the Grammys are really about market promotion. It's about materialism, which is something that is fundamentally at odds with what Tibetan Buddhism is supposed to represent. So there are a lot of ironies here. But I think, if you go back a couple of years ago, we should all recall the little scandal that happened between the Dalai Lama and a little boy. Right. We know that there have been a lot of sex scandals in a lot of the Tibetan monk temples and whatnot, and so this has been something that's been sensitive because there's concerns that these have been covered up. by the religious apparatus. And so there's certainly I think because it's been known for a long time that eventually this stuff with Epstein would come out. I wouldn't be surprised if his team were trying to seek some sort of validation, not only to recover from that scandal that really damaged him a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
but also to run concurrent with the stuff that we're now seeing come out about him related to Epstein. We know that there's been this sort of deep conspiracy in organizations like in Hollywood. But at the same time, what a lot of people don't realize, Lucian, but what you realize, what all the Chinese people have realized for hundreds of years, is that whoever controls the Tibetan Plateau controls China. That's where all of the headwaters of China's rivers run. That's why the Imperial Russia, that's why Imperial British played a 100-year game to try to gain control of that, because whoever controls that controls China. We also understand that's why the CIA sparked the Tibetan uprising in 1959, in which the Dalai Lama has said he made a tremendous mistake in conspiring with them. So,
yeah, for the sake of time, I want to really go back to Mr. Xiao Jie once again, and very briefly to hear your opinion. What do you think of the fact that there are these unanswered questions about the Dalai Lama's potential involvement in the Epstein files, but the Grammy doesn't seem to care about finding out about these questions?
Well, actually, the Dalai Lama's name has been mentioned in the Epstein files, and we all know this is a very hot news in recent days. I think that it's nowadays it is difficult to tell the truth, or whether or not it is true. The Dalai Lama has really met with Epstein, but I think that this is not the key issue. The key issue is that for the past decades, the Dalai Lama has been actively involved in the political, in the business, elite circles of the United States, and also or even the whole Western countries. He is a very active participator in the inner circle of the American elites, and he wants to meet more and more American elites. So Epstein can be considered as a connection hub among the American elites.
Okay.
And the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, I'm sorry, time is really limited. We have to take a short break on this topic, but I think it is interesting to wrap up this segment with a quote from a media report by the American journalist Silverman, who was trying to find out why the Dalai Lama may have been at now deceased sex trafficker and pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's house, and he said the answers are two reasons: sex and money. Which was which? The Epstein files, what does it reveal to the world? Now, over the past year, documents related to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have been released in a series of public dumps. Most recently, the U.S. Department of Justice published over 3 million pages related to the notorious files, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. This followed a law passed by Congress last November demanding full transparency and the release of all documents, forcing the Trump administration to act. Now, these releases have exposed powerful figures, including business tycoons, billionaires, government officials, and even royalty. What structural flaws has the case exposed within Western political and social systems? How transparent is the system? How functioning is the system? To discuss all of this, I'm continually joined by my guests David Ferguson, Xiao Jie, Professor Josef Mahoney, and Han Hua. Let me go to David there. David, you are joining us on the line. I understand. How deep will the rabbit hole go, and exactly what structural and systemic ills are we seeing here?
Well, the problem that the West has at the moment is that nobody has any idea how deep the rabbit hole goes. A huge amount of information has been revealed, but it's also been hugely redacted. So we can't really say what's been going on. We can't really say who has been involved. But the upshot is that for things that looked like they were ridiculous conspiracy theories just a very short time ago, people are now genuinely worried that it's real. And you're talking about really extreme stuff like cannibalism and child murder. People are now seriously considering whether that's actually been going on. And the fundamental problem the West faces is that this could destroy the whole Western moral framework, and it could destroy the whole claim to Western moral authority. We have hundreds, possibly even thousands of the most prominent figures from Western politics, from Western business, and from Western society involved. And with one or two exceptions, such as our Prince Andy and Prince Mandy, we don't actually know exactly what people have been up to.
Epstein was the subject of a police investigation about sexually abusing a teenage girl as early as in 2005. Han Hua, what went wrong, really? Because it's about 2 decades now, and still things have not surfaced, and nobody really been charged about it.
Yeah, Liu Xing, I was a journalist, so now, before I invest my whole time and energy and efforts into the international think tanks, so I remain from the perspective of international communication, and I realize how important the investigative, reporting is, especially in the Epstein cases. So I remain observation regarding the next steps of the next or the second half of the another 3 million pages to be released. But at the same time, you can see just yesterday, the Munich Security Forum released this year's theme as under destruction. I think it can be applied to the Epstein cases as well. This is the total and complete destruction of the Western democracy, which is built upon the basis of the rule of law. But since you mentioned that it was released, it was investigated as early as 2005, but the case was dismissed as early as 2008, and right after 2008, the Epstein certainly has built an even stronger and much larger of the elite, Western elite circle of including politicians, including academia, including Hollywood, from Hollywood to Harvard.
Possibly the Dalai Lama.
Of course, including the political and the religious figures like Dalai Lama. So this actually indicates the bankruptcy of the Western democracy from the moral high ground, from the rule of law, from it is, as you mentioned, it is systematic damage to the whole system, and also to the system of the judicial and the legal system. And they are building a circle that can protect Epstein and the elite in this circle from getting alleged, from getting some legally punished, so that the cases went even larger, and there are so many victims. There is no perspective with regard to the victims to be protected.
Well, after Epstein died in August 2019, one victim had this to say. She said Jeffrey Epstein has done nothing but manipulate the U.S.'s judicial system, where he has never been held accountable for his actions. Professor Mahoney, let me go to you. So did he masterfully manipulate the judicial system? Is the judicial system still functioning?
It's a good question. There are a couple of divergent points of view. One, was he operating by himself? Was this just a massive manipulation scheme where he was, collecting information, collecting people, I think is the term he used. Certainly there seems to be sociopathic elements at work. But, there's also a significant fear that he was working on behalf of some intelligence agency, that this was a form of elite capture. That was designed to compromise the political and economic elites, the cultural elites of the United States and other Western countries. The point has been raised about morality. Certainly, we've seen since the Clinton administration, before that, but from Clinton to Trump, increasing examples of sexual deviancy among top leaders that's been essentially normalized even among the conservatives now. We've also seen, as has been raised, the question about whether or not the system can be trusted. We know that under Trump, but not just Trump, we've had extreme politicization of the Department of Justice, the courts, even the FBI. Many people believe that the recent testimony by the FBI director was full of lies. That no one in the United States believes his comments to be true. So there's intense distrust now in the system. But at the same time, I think the other point to be raised about moral authority is that what you see are leaders, figures from different fields from across the political spectrum, essentially working together in ways. So they represent and they stoke divisions in society that exploit and suppress the people. But at the same time, we see them, the left wing, the right wing, the center, all sort of having these extreme parties or relationships with each other, which really beg the question of whether or not there's a true democracy to begin with.
What do you think? It seems that people do not find it horrifying or worth mentioning, or and the scale of this thing is so big, so long. There are so many victims. In the end, it's going to die down as a news cycle. David, what is the problem here?
I think it's slightly misleading to say that nobody cares. I think one of the reasons that the files were released in the first place is because of the enormous polarization now exists in US politics. Both sides thought they were going to be able to use it to attack the other. And Trump's being very heavily attacked by the Democratic side without it being very clear exactly what he's supposed to have done. But the fact that both sides are involved, which was the point that Joseph was making, we talked about the moral framework and the moral authority. It risks completely destroying trust in Western politicians. I mean, if you look at Statista, the survey company, in 2024, they looked at trust in Western politicians, and the US scored 6%, and the UK scored 6%. In 2025, it was 5%. I mean, what's going to happen now? And that is what has the West in a panic now. They've opened Pandora's box. All of this stuff is coming out. It's still very, very unclear who was involved and exactly what they were involved in, but it looks very bad. And now they're in panic because they can't close the box again, and they just don't know what to do about it. I mean, some of the ridiculous assertions that it was all a Russian plot, that is real desperate stuff. They don't know what to do about it.
Hanghua, do you share similar sentiments that this is so huge, such a monstrous incident that people needs time to take it in, let alone fixing the problems?
Yes, overall I agree with that. And I want to add is that, for President Trump, people never regard him as a moral authority from the very beginning. So there is this management of anticipation or management of expectation from the international communication perspective. So that's why President Trump, even he was mentioned like over 1 million times, it did not spark any huge or super surprise from these files exposure. On the contrary, Larry Summers, who used to be the president of Harvard University, was, his behaviors, his email communications with Epstein definitely, raised the eyebrows, and which led to his retirement or his going down to the stage. So this is different expectation. But overall, as I said, this is the moral authority failure, and this is also the failure of Western democracy. This is more fundamental, and this cannot be fixed in the short term. And the short term is the Epstein files. In the longer term, who is the authority of the Western democracy? Who can fix that? Which country can do that? Which economies can help, fix that to take care of the people's interests? These are the remaining lasting questions for the Western countries.
Professor Mahoney, yeah, it's really depressing, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds. What do you think this case is going to do to us as children of this era? What's going to reveal to us and make us think about going forward?
Personally, I'm very concerned that all of this was a conspiracy that was designed to sexually exploit children, especially girls, that in turn facilitated the murder of tens of thousands of women and children in Gaza. And if we look at this case now ongoing in Washington, we see this, of course, being a worthy distraction. And yet also in this past week, we saw Israel advancing illegal settlements again. on Palestinian land. So this is something that is still killing and diminishing women and children, and the fact that that's being missed is just compounding the crime.
Unfortunately, we haven't had time to go into that aspect, which is a totally very important and very big subject on its own, the treatment of women here. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go in there. Yeah, on that very depressing note, we have to leave it there. Many thanks to my guests, Mr. David Ferguson, Mr. Xiao Jie, Professor Joseph Mahoney, and Han Hua. Thank you all very much for your insights.